Just trying to.
Good morning, this is Senate Natural Resources and Energy. And it is Friday, April 17th. And we are starting the morning with H9:15. And this is not technically a new official
No, it's from there.
draft. This is it's a mad draft. It's a Mr. Chapman draft. So I'm gonna invite you up to the table. And I know you've done a lot of legwork to come up with some new language, so I'd love to see what you have to
Senator already. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I also sent you, and it should be available on right now that with you, my testimony. So there's both two documents we can have. One is a memo from me to you, basically sort of outlining the changes and trying to describe both what they are and where they're at. The other document is a markup with highlights on where the changes and recommendations are. So with that, I will, for the record, Matt Chapman, Director of the Waste Management and Prevention Division with the Department of Environmental Conservation. So the first sort of set of changes are largely in the definitions, and they are largely non-substantive. There are two substantive changes and one addition, because I made the decision to send this out to all of the stakeholders last night, and I've already received comments, one of them which was a very good comment, and I'll include it in my comments this morning. The substantive one is deposit initiator. So this is a term that's actually already used in the bottle bill, but it is used in the escheats section. This is moving it up into the general definitions that apply to the bottle bill, and is making it clear that this is the entity that is responsible for participation within the PRO and is obligated under this chapter.
And this is on page 2.
It is on page 2.
Yeah.
The definition of bottles, and basically what this is it's the person who incorporates the cost of the deposit into their beverage. So in many cases, it would be the distributor. So when we're talking about soda or beer, it may be the manufacturer. There are some large manufacturers who go ahead, and frankly, some small manufacturers who initiate the deposit themselves. In some cases, it's like a wholesaler, right? So, but it's clear that the person who initiates that deposit is the one who's responsible. And if no one initiates the deposit, then the person who first distributes the container in the state of Vermont is responsible for the participation in this program.
Okay, and this, so one of the issues that was raised to was this idea of like, I'm not sure what the right phrase is, but I've heard it called like white labeling.
So, you know, I've heard a couple different issues in this tries to solve all of them.
Okay.
Basically, there are some concern with manufacturers who use distributors, and because the way it was previously was defined, the obligation was on manufacturer or distributor. That was confusing, and there was a need for clarity there. There's also there is confusion sometimes when you're talking about, let's just say, a hypothetical container that's placed into commerce in, I'll just use in New England. So say, let me just give like a sort of real example. Say you have Switchel that is like produced in Maine, right? And it's put into a regional sort of wholesaler grocery and sold at grocery stores all throughout New England, Maine, Mass, New Hampshire, and in Vermont. The wholesaler is going to have to make a decision as to whether that producer, the manufacturer, is the deposit initiator, meaning that the cost of the soda coming into Vermont is going to have that 5 cents on it, or they're going to take responsibility over it. If no one does it, then the wholesaler is responsible for it.
Okay, so this is just clarifying.
It is correct.
Okay.
So that is the first substantive change. The other substantive change is frankly.
Why would a wholesaler be inclined to give it to the distributor
So one of the real challenges, especially when we're dealing with like wholesale distribution networks, is that often right? Often the manufacturer doesn't know
Okay.
where their containers are being sold, right? Like I give it to a wholesaler, that wholesaler is brokering it to various grocery stores or other places. They know where the containers are being sold, but I as the manufacturer may not.
So that's where it's likely to end up.
That is, it is, and again, that there are always exceptions to that general rule, but,
Okay.
all
Okay,
right. The other change was frankly an undoing of the change that I made and the addition of a definition of dealer. Okay, so this is one of these antiquated bottle bill terms that was undefined both in our rules and in statutes, but basically a dealer is any person who sells beverages, frankly, to anyone, right? So it's a broader in its scope than retailer.
is the definition of dealer in,
It is nowhere.
it's always nowhere, okay.
So you will not find it in your proposal.
Okay.
This is a comment that I received overnight.
Oh, okay,
And I am going to give Michael a definition of dealer, but it is, I basically borrowed from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And it's basically any person, including the operator of a vending machine or retailer, who engages in the sale of beverages in beverage containers to consumers in the state. So it picks up, frankly, everyone across the sales spectrum. And you basically need to do that. It gets complicated, but the requirements for retailers and dealers are slightly different. There were some concerns raised by an individual that were well taken.
so. We'll look at that in the future.
Yes. But flag again. So that's the easy one. Now moving to the handling fee. So there.
Like keep us track here, remark.
I absolutely will. So the first change with the handling fee is on page 4. It's in section 1522B. And this is really just clarifying that that the handling fee that exists as of today continues in existence until March 1, 2029, when the stewardship plan is implemented. So it keeps going until the technology is in place, the PRO is in place, so forth. So that's change number 1. This is the only time in my presentation where I would be sending you all over the document, because how the handling fee is addressed, it's not addressed in one single spot. So I apologize for that in advance, but you know, basically the long story, and I think I alluded to this in my last testimony, is that we think it's necessary as a part of this bill as we move forward into a more modern EPR program to move away from the handling fee. We've also heard a number of the concerns, and I'll just say the reason for that, and you know, you look at just Vermont, for example, we have 6 other EPR programs outside of the bottle bill. Of those 6 programs, none of them have a per container, per unit fee associated with the charge of collection. Only 2 have pay collection facilities. Of those 2, one of them requires fair compensation, considered a part of its plan. The other is HHW EPR, which has a list of things in the facility that are paid for, and it's paid for not specifically, but in a methodology approved by the agency. You probably heard the state of Oregon is often held up as kind of a model of a bottle bill. There's not a handling fee in the state of Oregon to administer the bottle bill. There never has been. So having said, we think it's important to move forward. We've also heard there's a number of concerns from a number of redemption centers, and think it's appropriate to put guardrails around what the PRO is doing. So I'm gonna go over 5 different things that basically protect redemption centers. I'll tell you where they're at. Well, also when we go just sort of progressing through the bill, they'll get flagged again.
Or did you want to?
No, I think Matt's gonna answer my question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, so the first one is what's in the bill that you saw that came over from the House. It's on page 18 of my draft. It basically is a requirement that the plan provide a methodology for what constitutes fair compensation. I will say, and I want to make it clear on the record today, my view as the person administering this law is that fair compensation means that your costs are covered and you're receiving some reasonable rate of return on the work that you're doing. Basically, the same approach that we take with utilities, but I don't want to go through rate making, right? So it is a narrative, it is not. It is how I will be looking at the plan when the plan comes into me. So
Well, just to clarify, so when you say a reasonable rate of return, I am also hearing that as like some amount of profit margin.
there needs to be, it can, you've got to cover your costs. It has to be something, and that's, I think, the gray area that the negotiation takes place in. So, so that's number one. That's on page 18.
So wait, I'm sorry, the gray area is,
And what constitutes a reasonable rate of return?
that's above hidden cost,
Above your costs.
above your costs.
Yep.
Okay,
The second is on page 19. It requires that the PRO maximize the use of the existing collection network as a part of their plan and their infrastructure. And then we added 3 additional elements to try and, again, put guardrails around the process. The first one on page 19 in 10 VSA 1532 A to F. There's a requirement that there be dispute resolution surrounding fair compensation, that it's resolved by a third, like a neutral third party. We would develop basic guidelines on how that dispute resolution would take place, and then let the parties go forth and
so that's like an arbitration.
it's like an arbitration process. It's similar to what the province of Quebec does with respect to disputes around compensation. So borrowing from that particular element. The next is on page 19, it's 1532 A2G. It requires that the PRO provide the agency a report midway through the plan. So the plan's 5 years. At 2 years and 6 months, they need to provide us a plan talking about how things have been fairly compensated and whether they need to be making adjustments to their compensation schedule. And if they do, they tell us what they are, and if they don't, they justify and explain why they didn't make an adjustment.
So I have more questions.
Please do.
On it. So, you just mentioned 5 years,
Yes.
but going back, there was a date that was like March of 2029.
Yes.
Only 3 years.
So
Yeah,
March of
like-
2029 is I would refer to it as the implementation date, right?
Okay.
That is the date where the PRO is going to be up, alive, active, in
Okay.
operation.
Okay,
And it used to be that, so that's a new date. The reason, frankly, that we need that date is because a lot of things are coming into being, and a lot of things are being repealed, and we need a fixed time as opposed to 90 days from the date the agency approves your documents.
Gotcha.
So
okay. And the 5 years is,
how the term of the approved stewardship plan. So we can approve it for a term no longer than 5 years.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
The next change is, I guess, the larger one. So it's on page 33. And it's adding a new subdivision 12. It's 6618 B12. And this is a redemption center transition grant. So it's intended to provide a grant to redemption centers that are in existence today, who don't receive capital or equipment investments by the PRO, they would be eligible for a grant from the agency for up to 1/2 cent per container. So that, roughly speaking, based on the estimates that we run, is about $350,000 in the aggregate. So we cap it too, because I leave a cap on it, and make it from a first come, first served basis. So that is an effort to try and ensure that there is some stability for redemption centers going forward in transitioning to this new model. That's how the agency proposes to address the elimination of the.
Okay, and again, so it's the total amount of grants would be capped, not,
The total amount of grants should be capped.
okay,
And this is a one-time,
It's a 4-year program, so it basically ties up, so we're giving capital grants to the PRO to basically buy equipment and make upgrades in facilities for 4 years. We're also basically parallel to that, creating a grant program for redemption centers that aren't being invested in to make sure that they frankly have some transition payments to help them manage into the new system.
but a redemption center can only get a grant once.
No,
No, they
no,
can
no,
get
they
it
get
for
all
4
4
years. So is it 350,000 a year?
The cap is $350 a year.
And does this? Oh, annually, and then. But does this require us an appropriation in future years? We can't find a future legislature.
So what this does is it creates grant program within the Agency of Natural Resources within a special fund that we administer. It authorizes the secretary to make grants out of that special fund.
What is the special fund?
Special fund is a fund that's created.
So which specific?
Oh, it's the Solid Waste Management Assistance Fund.
Okay,
And it would allow transfers between the Clean Water Fund and the Solid Waste Management Assistance Fund to allow some of these sheets.
right, no, I know that that's
Yep,
happening,
okay.
so it's from that fund,
It is.
okay, okay, and then. Okay, I'm just thinking about that, right?
And I guess I would say it would still be in our appropriations that's here, right? It would be in the agency's budget request and we would need budget authority for it, but it's generally speaking authorized under our special fund
to do this.
to do this.
Mhm.
Wasn't, the original bill has the, I don't see it in your, it has the transfers
It does,
from the Clean Water Fund.
it does.
So this is taking, the 350 is taking part of the funds that are transferred from Clean Water to Solid Waste Management Fund.
Let me get there.
And if it's doing that, weren't those transfers already fully appropriated in the bill as it came to us? So what is this taking the place of?
It increases the appropriation.
It increases the amount.
It increases the transfer from the Clean Water Fund?
So if you go to page 32, roughly speaking, I apologize, I'm looking at a Word version, I've noticed the Word and PDF don't
Oh,
always.
yeah,
line
that's
up.
like 31.
Okay,
Oh, I see.
so you'll notice on each one of those, so it was 1 million, it's now 1,350,000. So it's basically a $350,000 increase. I guess I'll also say, in conversations internally around this, it's an up to, and I think that we as an agency have the intention of looking at both the fund balance and needs of the Clean Water Fund and the fund balance and needs of the Solid Waste Management Assistance Fund and manage them sort of holistically. It's an eligible use from the Solid Waste Management Assistance Fund. If there are pressures on the Clean Water Fund, then we would use any fund balances in the Solid Waste Management Assistance Fund or reprioritize the work we were going to do towards funding these grant programs.
Okay,
Yes,
So does this discussion suggest that there will be some redemption centers in which the PRO is not interested?
I think that it is likely that there will be some redemption centers the PRO doesn't make significant capital investments in. If you're a very small, very rural, low throughput redemption center. The best thing may be to maintain the status quo and have you hand sort containers. I think there are two things that are in play with respect to that. One is, what are you getting as far as compensation from PRO on a per container cost? And that is gonna be negotiated. They're concerned by the redemption centers that they aren't gonna get what they think is fair. I guess I mean, I think you can see either direction. I think their costs are probably marginally higher than some of the other larger facilities, and they probably have a better case to be making as far as having an increased handling fee than someone who has millions and millions of more containers per day going through their facility.
So there be perhaps a little tension between the PRO and those facilities, because the PRO, it sounds like we just assumed they went away.
I think the PRO is going to need them in order to meet their obligations under the plan requirements. And they have to, again, they have to make all reasonable efforts to use existing infrastructure when developing their plan. There are situations where there are multiple redemption centers within walking distance of each other, and there may be in situations like that where the PRO comes to us and says, that just doesn't make sense. And we have a conversation around it.
I just want to make sure we're not leaving the rule of everything, so it's made clear. But they agree.
Yeah, so. If. How, okay, maybe I'm just not understanding the whole structure, without the handling fee. How are the redemption centers reimbursed for their? For their work?
They're gonna have an agreement with the PRO that says for every container that it could be in multiple different ways. It could be a flat amount, right? If for the year, I'm going to give you a flat dollar amount.
Yeah,
It could be per container, right? It very well could be that if there's an individually negotiated agreement that still has a per container
okay,
cost there.
and how do you, and maybe you're gonna get to this, I saw one thing in here about. The arbitration, but making sure that they're equal partners in negotiating, it feels like the PRO is gonna have they're the big guys and. The redemption centers are the little guys, and so how do we make sure that the little guys get fair compensation?
Sure. I mean, I think this is the time to talk about that. I mean, I think there are two fundamental sort of elements that are in here. One is that the general methodology and approach that's being used for fair compensation has to be provided to the agency, and we have to break with it. So if it's out of whack and sort of out of alignment with what constitutes being fair, we won't approve it and we'll send it back to the PRO to do it again. The other is in individual cases where the redemption center doesn't believe that they're being fairly compensated. They can bring that to a neutral third party and basically have the neutral third party review the records and make a determination as to whether it's fair compensation.
Okay, so there'll be lots of small negotiations happening, like you're gonna have to negotiate, is there? I just am not, does the bill contain sort of principles about what is fair compensation?
It is a general narrative. It's a general narrative right now. There's nothing that says this is what fair compensation is.
Could we add something like that?
Let me work through everything else, knowing that we only have a half an hour, less than a half an hour, and then I'll come back to that. All right, going back to my testimony. So on page 5, amendment section 1523, I'm referring to this as universal redemption, but basically this is a requirement of on retailers of when they have to accept containers and what containers they're accepting. So you'll see that this whole section is highlighted, and the reason that it is it's reverting to the existing language. As we get deeper into the bill, there will be a set of amendments that basically remove the existing requirement that says you only have to collect what you sell. and says you have to collect everything if you're basically being used as a collection facility under the plan. We're moving away from this sort of like historic retail redemption obligation that you only have to collect what you sell, and anyone can bring any container that is a beverage container subject to the bottle bill into a collection.
Does that include
It does. So, next up is liquor and lottery. This, it's on page 8 in section 1527, and it removes retailer and adds point of redemption to be consistent with the rest of the bill. That's more, just clean up. The next change is in section 10, it is in, on page 10, I added in section 1530, which is the unclaimed deposit section. And added it and basically deleted the definition of deposit initiator because we moved it up to the general definitions. All right, the next change starts sort of, it's in section 1531. I'm changing throughout the section, removing distributor and manufacturer and inserting deposit initiator. And then on page 14, there is a change that makes it clear that the PRO can both charge fees for the implementation of the program. So they can charge, the PRO can charge Coke, Pepsi, Budweiser, the cost of running the program. And the other thing is they can demand data from anyone who's asked to participate in the program, how many containers, et cetera.
So deposit initiators are essentially Coke, Pepsi, they're the people who, the beverage producers.
So it depends, right? Like, so Coke and Pepsi, are actually, all of their obligations are met by distributors in the state.
Okay,
Right, so the distributors are the deposit initiators. Polar Seltzer, they initiate their own deposits. So they're a manufacturer who does their own deposit initiation, and so they would. This is one of those like vexing little areas of the bottle bill that makes my head hurt. So I understand completely, Senator. So this is one of those little we played around with a lot of different ways to try and get the right terminology, frankly, to make sure that all the right people are participating in the PRO. And deposit initiator is the right definition from the sort of the agency and sort of the other free and others perspective. All right, moving on into the plan itself. And again, there's so on page 17 in 1532 A1B, this goes back to the removal or addition of retail locations from the plan, but this makes it very clear that if the PRO wants to remove a retail location from a plan, they've got to demonstrate to the agency that the area is adequately served as a part of the plan. So again, this is really intended to capture things like, going up Route 7 into Burlington, probably some retail areas in Rutland, right, where you have a high density of retail locations that might have to do collection. We don't necessarily want to have RVMs put in 15 retail locations or within walking distance of each other, right? So this allows a little planning and the agencies of discretion in this space. The next change is on page 18. This is basically requires, it basically makes sure that the places that are administering the law have the capacity from training, equipment operation perspective. It also makes sure, and we hear this complaint from redemption centers a lot, I want to make sure that it's addressed, that there's pickups on a regular basis. And that if there's, we've heard complaints about equipment in an error status, like the RPMs at Shaw's is the common one that comes up, that there's a line and a person on the other end of that line to call if there's an error or issue with the machinery. Next up, on page 19, changes to 1532A2F. This is the fair compensation requirement that I discussed just a minute ago. 1532A2G, that's the plan review portion of that basically tells the PRO to go through and take a look at fair compensation midway through the PRO plan. The next change comes on page 20. So this is amending section 1532A3C. This is putting in minimum hours of operation. So a comment was raised, I think it's a good one, that we have minimum hours of operation on redemption centers. This basically requires 35 hours a week, 6 hours on Saturday, and at least till 7 p.m. one day a week. And then if there's anything like, I'm gonna call it a fast crash redemption center. So if as a part of this, we decide to have mobile collection or more points using different things, it sets up a standard for those as well. See, and just to note, this is model law language that's being considered in the bill right now. Next change is in section 1532C. It's on pages 22 and 23. This addresses some of the comments that were made to the agency's review and approval process. So it makes it very clear now that I think it was implied, but the secretary can deny the plan and that the PRO needs to resubmit in 60 days. Addressing the basis of the denial, it makes it clear that the agency can amend the plan and approve it with those amendments, or alternatively place conditions on the approval of the plan. And then it also makes it clear that a renewal plan needs to be submitted 6 months before the expiration of sort of the plan that's in term, and that we need to act on that plan 90 days prior to its expiration. So again, more process stuff, but I think good. The next change is in yes.
Just what happens if during those 90 days you can't reach agreement?
Well, then one of two things happens. Either we deny the plan and then there's a series of, we have in the
Or you could always just buy it without that.
exactly, we would, denial is action. Yes.
And
Yes,
is there in this time period a process for others to give input on the plan, to say we like this plan or we don't like this plan or
Yes.
change this plan?
Yes, so there are two common processes, right? One is that there's a informal advisory board the PRO needs to set up to basically have them review the plan before it ever reaches the agency of natural resources.
Is that created in your?
It was actually in the underlying, it was in the underlying bill. I think we talked about it, it's.
Sorry, I've been
No,
talking about a lot.
that's understood, Senator. It is. Again, I apologize for my page. It's on about page 21. It's subdivision 5 consultation with stakeholders.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
This needs to be.
covered
I was gonna say, I believe some have referred to it perhaps weak tea, but.
Yes, yeah, it's neat.
You know, I guess I would say that, the intention of this is to make sure that the agency is getting a diversity of individuals commenting on the plan before it ever hits my desk. So that I have the benefit of both seeing what their comments were, and if they're not resolved, it gives me a heads up that this is an area the agency needs to put additional scrutiny into when we conduct our review process. So I mean, that's how I envision using this section.
Mhm.
I mean, there are lots of different models. We've used this one in the past. I actually think it's very effective. It gives the agency a lot of advance notice as to where the disagreements between stakeholders are before it ever hits the agency's step. You can try to go in and work to resolve them. Though I'm certainly open to other options, and I guess the other element that you don't see, but it says that we follow type 3 process, and because we have sort of our uniform sort of process, so there's a notice comment process attached to this as well. So once the agency's completed its review and is basically approving the plan, it goes out for a general public notice and comment period where people can again comment on the plan if they have concerns or things that they think need to be changed. Those comments can go in space of those comments as well. So it's, and then obviously it's an active decision of the secretary. If people really have an issue with it, they can appeal it to the environmental division of the Superior Court.
So we can figure out a way to soak the tea bag a little.
All right, let me continue on. I think the next change is on page 23. It's 1532E. This is the implementation date, right? This sets the implementation date at March 1st, 2029. Again, to give a clear sort of target for when things need to get. There are a number of additional changes that were made. I will admit, we were looking at things in isolation in the other body, not necessarily lining all the dates up so that they made sense. And so if you look at the financial audit, it was moved to 2030 because if it's only effective in March 29, you're not going to actually even have a full year before when the audit was previously proposed. Moves the first performance goal to again to July 1st, 2030. And then the second to July 1st, 2033. And again, that's to give some time for the plan to actually be implemented and take effect so we can see whether we're actually seeing changes in the collection rates. It moves the report with recommendations off of July 1st and on to December 1st. I don't think I would give you a very effective report if I was giving it to you from the same day that I'm getting the data from the PRO. And it still gives you a little bit of time before the start of the legislative session so that if you need to take legislative action, you have to go do that. Next set of changes is on pages 26 through 28, amending section 1523. This is that universal redemption section. So it basically removes the provision that allows retailers to only redeem what they sell. So they all have to basically sell everything, or excuse me, collect everything. It clarifies the PRO is required to collect all labeled containers from a location included in the plan. In other words, if they've got it, you're taking it, and it doesn't matter. Again, I've heard this complaint. I don't think it's a significant one. I've talked with the distributors, they don't either, but if it's crushed, if it's cullet, because of the machinery that the PRO has basically put in, they put the machinery in, they're taking the containers, right? Like there's not going to be any exceptions with respect to that. Again, generally changing the definitions from retail and redemption to points of redemption and manufacturer distributor to PROs, general editorial changes out. And then basically adding a requirement not to redeem if you know that it was purchased out of state, the container was already redeemed, or if it's not a registered vendor. So if you see, show my age, you see Kramer and Newman showing up from New York with all of their containers in the back of the mail truck, you know.
It's a great episode.
All right. So next set of changes on page 31. This is the Clean Water Fund.
Do you know what the reference is?
I do. I
Okay.
never saw the episode, but I know.
So page 31, this increases all of the transfer authorities by 350,000. Let's see, on the next set of changes is on page 33, and I'm not.
Sorry, before we go on.
Yes, please.
On page 31.
Yep.
Where it's got these transfers. Can you just so the first 2 years are 1.35 million and then goes to 1.1. Can you just help me understand like why those are different?
Sure, it really is, if you go to, if you go to section 6618, so if you go down to. In the bill to around page. 33. You'll see two sections, there's 11 and section 11 and section 12. I actually, and this is a change that I need to make, right? In section 11, I need to make it clear that, that in the first 2 fiscal years, the amount, the implementation grants under this section are only $1 million, they can get up to $1 million. And in the second 2 fiscal years, they can get up to $750,000. So that was the previous transfer authority. Now it needs to be embedded in here because there's more money moving around.
Okay, so I see, so this is the implementation grants for the PRO.
Correct.
For
By
equipment, so, okay, so, and then, so it's $1 million for the first 2 years. And then 750, okay, which is why, okay, then we add.
There's the difference,
Yeah,
that's 50.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, then the next set of changes are the redemption center grant that you see right below that. So the on page roughly 35, you see the redemption center grant. Actually, I should probably note on page 36, I did not put this in my testimony, but I deleted the bottle recycling and materials reporting section. This was a section that was added, I think it was in H 158, it got carried over into this bill. We basically used authority the agency already has to work. This was intended to require bottle bill MRFs, so basically the Tower facility in Essex Junction, to do the same level of reporting that our recycling facility MRFs were doing. So we had comparable data and we could see what was going on in each of those facilities. We made a decision internally within the agency to re-examine a historic process, a historic decision that that bottle bill MRF was exempt, and basically told them that it's not, and that it needed a permit, they needed to bring a permit. So that's a long story, that's actually not necessary anymore. Section 6, the repeals. So there are a few more things that are brought into the repeal section. One is product registration. The agency's not going to be doing product registration anymore. The PRO is going to be doing product registration. So we're going to repeal the agency's product registration authority. And both the product registration authority and the redemption center certification authority are repealed on March 1, 2029, which is the implementation date. The next set of changes are basically repealing both the PRO implementation grants and the redemption center transition grants after the 4-year period that they sort of run their course. In the effective dates, there are a couple changes. One is I've worked with the parties. So the first effective date makes the prohibition on selling beverage containers in the state effective. And that basically needs to be, we're basically making it effective 6 months after the PRO comes into existence. So PRO is getting formed. You basically have a 6-month grace period to register with the PRO and become a member. After that, it's a violation and the agency can get its ruler out for after knuckles.
Wait, that's still a, I wanna see your ruler. July 1st, 2027,
Yes.
but I thought that the PRO would take place March 1st, 2029.
Okay.
So.
Different set of requirements, so there's the difference between the formation of the PRO, right? So the actual forming of the nonprofit corporation that manufacturers need to join and pay into, so that the plan can get executed and implemented. The PRO itself gets formed on there on January 1 of 2027. And then, so we have 6 months for people to basically
Got it,
register
okay.
that PRO.
Okay.
And then the next set of effective dates are just again making. The next effective date is making that change to universal redemption effective. And then the last one is to deal with capital grant interventions and grants making those effective on July 1, 2029. Yeah, it's a couple months after the general implementation, just to align it with fiscal years. It makes a lot more sense to do it that way.
Okay, so your thoughts? I have thoughts to do.
I have thoughts, but do you wanna go first?
Sure, well, I wanna go back to the fair compensation.
I bet our thoughts are similar.
Yeah. So. It sounded like you had more to say about that, and
Don't want to try and push it off.
you're like, actually, I don't wanna.
I mean, I guess I would say that, what's hard to say? My view is that you want to leave some degree of flexibility and discretion there, but I wanted, the direction that I said, I think you could put into that definition.
Okay,
Right, which is to say that fair compensation is covering your costs plus a reasonable rate of return.
I'm interested in, at the very least, putting that in, making that clear.
Yeah. I think, I agree, I think we need to have some kind of standard about what fair compensation is, so that the PRO doesn't bulldoze the small redemption centers.
Well, and I wonder, I would, if we were to put in language that fair compensation means cover your costs plus a reasonable rate of return. I'm looking at redemption center folks in the room to
Put me on the
see
spot.
their reactions, but. So we can have more conversation about that. I don't know if you would like to comment now, if you, I don't wanna put you on the spot if you don't want to be put on the spot, so,
Would love to comment.
okay.
I have a few things to say about, related to what he said. Do I reserve them for a few things?
Yes,
Yes, okay.
and, would you introduce yourself for the record?
Yeah, I'm Shane Switzer from Limbo Redemption. I'm gonna read from this here, just some notes that I made. So the first piece about fair compensation, I think that is if we're gonna talk at all about not having a raise in or a floor of some sort in this bill, then it has to be rock solid in there that we have something that's fair. I'm gonna give a quick example and just, I know we're limited on time, but if I were to say to Coke and Pepsi, hey, you guys are really inefficient making your deliveries. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna form this organization, we're gonna buy you a really fast truck and you're gonna make deliveries, it's gonna make it way more efficient. They say, okay, great, we charge this much. I'm like, well, actually, no, we're gonna negotiate that later. That doesn't work, like, that doesn't work for anybody in this room, there's no way that applying that works. And that's what we're asking to do here, unless we have real clear definitions on what this fair compensation piece. And so, there's a couple of things that I'd like to, just fair compensation is a must for us, just, we have to have it. There's, regarding that, if the PRO stands up in 2029, can we survive until then with no raise? I don't know. The other thing is 2.5 years to review it for the first time. I like that idea, that's great, but can we do something that does it sooner for the first time, maybe a year after it stands up, to make sure that everybody is in, and I don't wanna make it too close, but, because there's a lot to figure out, but at the end of the day, is 2.5 years too much? Possibly. The Oregon comment is, I just wanna state on the record that that's mostly irrelevant, because, Oregon redeemed billions of bottles and they're unclaimed, they propped their system up with unclaimed bottle receipts, to the tune of hundreds of millions, so that we can't really compare Oregon's system to ours. Yes, they don't have a handling fee, but their system is run 360 degrees different than ours. It's way different. So we shouldn't try to compare to them 100%. My last comment would be, or one more thing on the 7 p.m. that you're asking for about requiring that we're open Monday until 7 p.m. I'd love to not have that a specific time in this bill. And the reason why is because, like, right now our bottle redemption is open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And after 6 p.m. we see a real drop off just in our particular case, we see a real drop off. I would hate to be made by law to stay open another hour, that we're just wasting labor. And so I would love to see that. I don't mind, by the way, the time, we have to be open 35 hours a week or whatever that is. I'm fine with that. The last comment that I'll make is, if there's a willingness to move some money from the Clean Water Fund, let's, I don't know, let's do it. This 0.5% doesn't really do a bunch for most of the redemption centers in the state. I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know if Matt, I would pose a question to Matt, like how many redemption centers would stand to gain from that? And what you're doing there is throwing a bone, if you will, to the smaller ones, and I appreciate that, because they're not going to have the benefit of the equipment, but that is somewhat leaving the rest of us in a situation where we're gonna have to wait until 2029 in this gray area. We don't like gray. The word gray area in our compensation doesn't work for us.
Can I ask a question? So, I think Matt's proposal still includes the going from 4 to 5 cents in the interim period for the handling fee.
Is that
For those not included in a commingling agreement.
yeah, so as far as that goes, so I don't know the percentage, but most of the stuff goes into commingling. And then there's some other things that it's a matter of putting it in a bin right here for commingle and a bin over here for not commingle. Is it a tiny bit more work? A tiny bit. It's not really anything that's gonna move the needle here.
Okay, so what do you want, the 3 1/2 cents for containers that are part of a co-mingling program is what you need increased, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, because the bill calls for everything to be commingled after the PRO is stood up, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so everything after will be commingled automatically, and right now, there's commingled and non-commingled. Yes, the bill says forced or raises it, but it's not really, it doesn't really move the needle, because it's a way smaller amount.
Okay, so if the 3 1/2 cents were to be increased for the interim period until March of 29, that's what you're asking for?
So if it's gonna take that long to stand up the PRO, which I understand why it would,
Yeah,
then, we have to really ask ourselves if we're gonna survive until then.
right, okay,
Like, is there more redemption centers that are gonna go out of business? I don't know, so we need to, I don't wanna say that that's well, I mean, yes, that's what I'm asking for.
Okay, your eyes, so I understand.
Yes, yeah, I appreciate it, I appreciate it.
I wanna make sure that I'm understanding a thing.
Yeah.
About this, which is that. So you're, cause there's the transition grants, which is like on a per container basis.
Yeah.
And so your thought is that. People who receive. Like equipment, basically from the PRO
Yeah.
they're not eligible. To receive that grant.
Yeah.
I guess I'm wondering about the timing of all of that, because that's for the next 4 years. But how likely is it that, and maybe this is maybe showing a little bit of ignorance here, but how likely is it that a PRO would be giving out equipment in the next 4 years? So I guess what I was hearing was like, we're gonna be left out, or some people are gonna be left out. But if nobody is giving equipment in the next 4 years. Because the PRO is getting stood up or maybe towards the end, that might be true.
Yeah.
But if. Next year, for example, like there's no PRO is still getting formed, they're still figuring out their plan, everyone would still be eligible for that. Basically, is how I'm hearing it. Is that accurate?
So the way the bill is drafted, the current handling fee continues with a 5 cent for non-commingled continues until March 1, 2025.
And
the grants
Yeah.
basically begin on July 1, 2029 and run for 4 years.
sorry, so the grants run, okay, because the grants are not starting, right, okay, thank you. There was a timing thing, and now I think that's resolved it, because the grants start in 2029. Got you, okay, yes.
I just wanna be clear about my comment on that. I think that makes sense, because those people are gonna be left out of being more out of the equipment. But my comment is more around, although yes, that throws them a bone, don't let that be, don't let that mask the fact that we aren't getting anything in the thought process.
Well, and what I wanna come back to too is that, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, so I want to check me if is this accurate?
Yeah.
I was hearing too that something that's important to you is that the fair compensation is truly fair. And do you wanna comment at all about how we were, well, before I move on? Would it be fair to say that the structure of a fair compensation is more important to you than, say, the transition grants? Maybe that's not something that.
So the transition grant doesn't affect me at all.
Yeah, okay.
And so I think that's great. I'd like to think that I'm here speaking for, possibly the larger group, but for Redemption Center as a whole, but I think that's a great piece to the bill. It's a great add-on, but don't let that be, that's not a concession for the most of the system.
Okay.
That's just adding something, a piece to it that is welcome, but it's not. Let's just say it's not doing us, the most of the system any favors. It's doing the small towards good, which is great. I think it's an important piece, but as far as yeah.
Okay, so in terms of fair, well, if there's anything you would like to add.
Just to
But
reiterate,
if you could introduce yourself.
Ethan Hayes, General Manager of Wonderful Beverage. Just make a brief change point about the fair compensation and the word gray. That's not a word for our bottom line investment. It's got the black and white. So, and that's really non-negotiable for us. In order for us to run our business and to be profitable, that fair compensation needs to be rock solid so that we know what it's going to be and that there's going to be some kind of a base there. Because we are in this for a profit at the end of the day.
Yes.
Don't do
It
that,
has to be.
then somebody else can certainly make a crack at it, it won't be us, but we don't wanna go that route. You know, we don't want to take what's already existing as a bottle bill and put redemption out of business. And secondly, we've already invested in this technology. We're the only ones in the state that have done it. So when we talk about transition grants and putting equipment into redemption centers, well, we did that. We spent $250,000 to do that. And it has been successful in a lot of ways, and in some ways it hasn't. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, but we want to be probably happy and profitable.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Absolutely.
So the definition of fair compensation that was floated around, do you feel like that's sufficient, or would you have a different, would you add anything to it?
I don't think it would add anything to it. It just needs to be there. It needs to be solid, it needs to be something that everybody agrees on.
Okay.
Whole.
And I mean, your story about how you invested in the equipment and it still didn't really reduce your labor costs
That's-
is, I think, really important to remember that you're still gonna have. People are, redemption centers are still gonna have labor costs that
That's
they
right.
have to carry, and they have to be compensated for those labor costs, even if there is an investment in the technology and equipment.
That's right. And in 2029, those labor costs will not be any lower than they are today. And people
Probably
in
not.
the direction. So even maintaining the handling fee at 3.5 cents for the next 3 years until the PRO gets stood up still makes our business questionable, as Shane was reiterated. I understand that's a tough one, but that, again, that goes back to our profit. And so
So
Yeah.
what I am thinking about from here is, because what would be useful, I think, is to have language, if that is sort of the crux of the whole thing, is it would be useful to have language to look at, to start from, right, like, and I realize that there is a delicate balance to be, to be struck there, so, want to, well, before we get to that, I'm thinking about asking for a new draft. And with that, I don't wanna go too fast if the committee is not ready to do this. But going through what I heard from Mr. Chapman, I feel comfortable with the changes he was proposing. And alternatively, I think it's also fair, to say, we heard a lot of things. And so one place to start would be to start with Mr. Chapman's recommendations. And then if there's other things that you heard that are of interest, then we can talk about those as well. And then, but together with that, let's take a crack at some language about fair compensation, as we've discussed. Yes. I'm open to some.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I would like definition of fair compensation. And I also, the consultation with stakeholders, the weak T. Is there a way that we can make that T a little stronger and make sure that there is more ability to have input on the plan, but also how the plan is working after a plan is, so as we're coming up with a second plan, like, okay, this plan didn't work as well as we thought it was going to, so let's make these changes to the second plan, so just yeah, the consultation with stakeholders, definition of fair compensation, and is there, I mean, I think I heard you, Matt, earlier saying that there's not, the agency would support an increase in the fee, the handling fee.
Correct.
But you were okay going from 4 to 5 for the
For the non-commingled, yes, I mean, you know, again, generally speaking. I mean, I'll let the demonstrators define how much work it is on them. What we have always heard is that. You know, if we can drive non-commingled into the commingling agreement, it reduces the amount of sorting that needs to happen and the amount of work that needs to happen. So, and it frankly adds the other benefit of driving these scattered people into a sort of unified system so that they're ready for the PRO and the PRO is set up.
Mhm.
Yes, Mr.
Just a clarifying question, so when I'm not clear on who benefits from the unclaimed deposit? Where does that go?
It goes to the Clean Water Fund.
Okay, so, I remember some of the testimony, we're still dealing with. A program that originated back in 1972. Never been an increase. I'm in favor of giving these guys the boots on the ground. A little bit of that for just compensation for inflation and everything else. Is there any way we can do that? No?
Someday in the future.
The bill does transfer some of the money from the Clean Water Fund to the Solid Waste Management Fund to help pay for the new system. For this sort of unclaimed.
I'm talking about keeping people in business.
No, I understand, I mean, that's why I was hoping that we could move. That the handling fee, at least in the interim, up a little bit to help them stay in business. But
It sounds like that's sort of what. I guess the transition period still starts at 29, but
yeah,
yeah.
that's the thing, like, they're not gonna help it, we.
Mhm.
I mean, I am willing, if the committee wants me to see whether it's feasible to move those transition grants closer in time. I mean, I think that the challenge with that is just the amount of money you're talking about, right? Because you're not gonna have the way they're structured is they're structured off capital investments, so it basically is trying to help people who aren't getting those investments or transition into the new bottle bill system. If we move them forward in time, it would be broader in its application and therefore would be a lot more money.
Yeah.
Mm,
Well, so I think it's just that this interim period, which is essentially 3 years. We don't want redemption centers to be going out of
No.
business in the next 3 years. And so they're gonna get a little tiny bit more for non-commingled.
Correct.
Non. That are part of the, for commingled, they're gonna get,
For non-commingled.
oh, they're not part of, commingled. Okay, the way it's worked is like, there's something. So. But that doesn't sound like that's gonna be sufficient to carry them through. And
Let's, if that is something that you can look into, it would be of interest.
Okay.
Can
I
we,
will look into it.
okay. That. I don't wanna cut you off, Snre.
no, that's okay, I'm just thinking.
Thinking about
That is of interest, just say that.
I also agree or hear that the 7 PM time, putting that into statute.
Yeah.
Seems a little harsh.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's being more flexible.
Yeah.
They need to be open hours where people are gonna be able to be there, but putting an actual time in statute seems a little, okay.
Yeah. And then there were at least a couple of things that you noted, like comments that came in overnight.
I'll work with my commander if they're reflecting.
Great.
I hope you know that we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Well, hopefully it's helpful.
Yes.
yeah, you're working hard to make this work and for like the 5th year in a row or 8th year, 20th year.
It'll just be the last year.
Yeah.
So great.
Fine.
And Michael too.
Yes.
Yes. Names billion times.
It feels like we're close. We'll just say that. Maybe, I don't know if I'm wrong about that, but that's how it feels anyway. Okay, anything else about this? So, Mr. O'Grady, you're gonna make a new draft,
New
based on
draft.
conversation.
I will rely on that for some of the fair compensation language,
Yeah.
and then the other additional changes you want.
Okay,
Be ready.
Great.
Tuesday.
and then, for all the folks that have, like, I don't know who all you have talked to. But I would just say to the universe, that if you have things that you did not see in here, would be helpful to know. Okay. Okay, thank you. So with that, we're gonna. Oh, yes, yep,
I'm sorry.
yep, that, I totally support that, I was thinking that myself, actually. We're gonna take 5 minutes break.
Sorry, Jude.
So 10,
Sorry.
actually, let's do 7 minutes, 10:20.
10:20.
10:20.
Oh,
And I will do. I will.
you gotta do what you gotta do. For you to go. I'm going that way, thanks. This drawer is broken, is that why it's out?
Yes,
I don't know.
for the 10th time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Do you happen to have anybody in your Advil by any chance?
They have a sergeant of arms.
Sergeant
of Arms, yeah.
I used my last yesterday.
Yeah, they have that and I think time.
Okay.
Thank
you.
You have
like to travel on this trip.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, we have any bother, we have.
See, we started talking about them. Was named. People, yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sense.
You guys are doing what. These guys getting one thing all our things. It's gotta make it, you gotta divvy it out. Where is it? He has observed it. He just drives, he listens to everything, takes the recommendations. Those guys. You're the model convention, which makes them your own rate. We keep picking up the slow residents, so if it falls in, we don't go in additional money. So,
Yeah.
But you know, you're still getting my subject. Yeah. You got people from New Hampshire and New York coming to the garage, pick up cans and bottles, because you can't get anybody to come out. I'm.
I could tell.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I'm not where it sees,
Sometimes why, no building. This.
Different topic.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Natural Resources and Energy coming back from a break. And we are looking at a new draft of H778, the dam safety bill. We have Mr. O'Grady with us, welcome.
Good morning, this is Mike O'Grady with Budget Council. You just want me to walk through the changes?
Wait, what are we doing?
That's dam safety.
778.
Based on Eric Friend's recommendation,
Yes, the discussions you had yesterday.
I put it on your desk.
Oh, yeah.
She makes it looking fine.
Pass it.
Go ahead.
Okay, on page 2, line 10, in the, what they will generate as part of the pilot project. It had previously said the set of EOP for each state shall include an EOP for each municipality. And Director Foran asked that it be changed to include actions for each municipality, because there might be some EOPs that are basically the same for similar municipalities, and so it's that's what he requested, actions instead of an EOP for each municipality. And then on page 2, lines 14 and 15, you may remember in preparing the EOP, there was a requirement for the division to coordinate with the list of people. The director asked that that be changed to whole community, and that there be a reference to what whole community means. Unfortunately, there isn't a definition in the FEMA rules of what a whole community is, but they have multiple guidance documents about how to do a whole community approach to emergency preparedness. And this document has a definition of whole community in it. It's very narrative, it's kind of a holistic concept and not, like the specific makeup of the whole community. And so this is what is used as the standard, and this is the document that is referred to on page 2, lines 17 to 21. This morning, Director Foran said he would prefer that the term whole community be capitalized. So it's referred, so it's read as a term of art and not meaning the whole municipality. And I didn't get that correspondence with him until I was here in committee, but.
Can I ask this question? I think that the capitalization makes sense, but is it okay? I mean, from your perspective, as a drafting attorney, to be referring to a document that is 15 years old, that is not actually in rule or statute, it's just a guidance
Well,
document?
remember, this is a pilot project. It's temporary in nature. This is, when you go to FEMA's website about whole community planning, this is the
That's the
document.
thing, okay,
And so I believe that this is what you would need going forward if you were going to want to have something more codified. You might want to come up with your own definition of whole community. That's more definitive and not less narrative.
yeah,
But I think for purposes of this and what Director Foran says to how they do whole community planning, that this is the appropriate document.
okay. Okay. Thank you.
On page 3, there is a replacement of the list again with a whole community on lines 15 and 16, engaging in facilities that house vulnerable populations. On page 4, again, there had been a specific list, and the director had asked that that be replaced with a summary of who in the area of potential inundations for each dam that the division or contractor coordinated with in the development of the EOP. So not specifically having a list where people might be left out, but just having a comprehensive statement of who they coordinated with. Going on to page 5. There are. The next 6 changes relate to clarifying that an EOP is for the municipalities downstream, it's not for the dam. It had previously said an EOP for the dam, so it now says recommend how EOP should be completed for municipalities downstream of all state or federal dams, and that is the change that's made. Page 5, line 8 and 9, page 5, line 11 to 12, page 5, 15, 19, and then on page 6, line 1 and 2. And then next change, page 6, line 4. Previously, the division was supposed to recommend funding sources. And they say that that's not their expertise, so you ask them to recommend organizations that may assist municipalities in accessing potential funding in the completion or compliance with the EOP. And then on page 6, line 11 and 12, instead of it saying how often exercises should be conducted by division by our regional planning commissions by municipalities to practice an EOP, the director said it should be conducted. How often exercises should be conducted to validate the EOPs, which is their terminology in emergency preparedness. So I would have to capitalize whole community where it is in the bill, but other than that, do you want to encourage it?
No, just comparing the notes that I took on this, this is great. Any other comments, concerns, questions? Okay, so. Okay, today's Friday.
Can I just ask one
Yes.
question?
Yes.
The page 3, stop to start, engage facilities that house vulnerable populations within the whole community in the plan development. Given that the definition of whole community is more narrative, does this still make sense?
It does, because when you look at that definition, it has, whole community planning means engagement with different groups in all hazard environments, individuals and institutions with different vulnerabilities. That would look at the capacity of the private and nonprofit sectors, including businesses, state-based and disability organizations.
It's in there, okay.
It's all in
Okay.
there.
I just wanted to make sure because it's used as a noun, but it
Yes,
sounds like this is more of a.
it's a concept.
Concept, yeah, like, so,
Yeah.
okay, but if that covers it, then I'm fine with that, okay.
And this would be another place that we would capitalize. our community-
Capitalize it,
Yeah,
right,
okay.
but-
And this is just grammatical question here, but in that line. Engage facilities. I assume we're talking about the people.
Sure, engage,
This is, I realize
I understand what you're saying.
doesn't matter, really. I think we mean the same thing.
I'll say something like. Engage, administrators or managers of facilities that house.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Okay, so I think we've aimed for a new draft of this early next week, like Tuesday.
Sure.
And I'm gonna put on the agenda, probably, committee discussion, possible vote, and be done.
So the new draft, I'll provide it as clean with no highlighting,
Okay,
is that okay? So
Yeah,
just what
yes.
whenever you're ready.
yeah, and I mean, we just wanna probably check out the capitalization and the engaging facilities part, but I think otherwise we're good.
Okay,
Thank you very
great,
much.
have a good weekend.
Yes, you too.
Oh, Ellen, we're wrapping up.
Alan's ready.
And she's here.
I can't see anymore.
That's the trade-off, I suppose. Okay, welcome, hello. 9:40. Yes,
For your flexibility.
yes, thank you. Okay, so my thoughts. Sorry, just processing too many things simultaneously. Is to start walking through 9:40 and see if there's changes that I want to make, see if you want to close things don't. In preparation for a potential close. So. Okay, yeah, we have it, and there is no new draft at the moment, but that's. See if it changes we want.
Didn't want that, but that's definitely sweet.
Yes.
So do we put it in?
Yes, and
Sounds too.
okay. So for this part, I'm imagining just walking through it sort of one more time and like checking off, like, are we cool with this? Welcome.
Thanks, Alan J. Cassidy, Office of Legislative Council. So H 940 as passed the House, this is miscellaneous public utility subjects. It has 3 subjects in it. Section 1 is on use of thermal funds by a retail electricity provider that's also an efficiency utility, which is code for Burlington Electric Department. So do you want me to go line by line or just talk through this?
I don't know that we need to, I think conceptually, I just wanna check in with folks. Were there any, unless you'd like to go line by line. Conceptually, I was okay with it, I'm happy to. Just check in, see if anybody had questions or concerns, and then move on. So mostly interested in sections 2 through 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I'll go back to the original issue I had, is that I think, I understand this is. There's litigation, it's fine and so.
Oh, not this part.
Not this part?
Nope. You're talking about single play? That's not this.
Okay.
That's a different bill.
Well,
Yeah.
No. Okay. So we're gonna move on to section 2 then.
Yep,
Okay.
section 2 is amending 24 VSA 4348, so the language starts on page 3. This is the section that has the procedure for regional plan adoption and amendment. And it is adding language here to weave into that existing process, the optional enhanced energy planning. And so in 3 spots, in the 3 parts of this section, language is added so that if the RPC is going to seek energy determination, which I think you've heard all of them have, they need to include this now as part of the process when they have their next plan update go before the land use review board. Instead of having a separate process, go parallel with the Department of Public Service. So the Department of Public Service will still be reviewing it, but just at the same time as the land use review board is doing their review.
Okay. I was okay with it. That's.
The only thing is this paragraph that's also in S 325
Oh, yes.
and making sure that we're coordinating with that bill.
So there are 3 changes in this bill that are not in S 325. House Environment started their mark above it yesterday. And I made the pitch to them. I don't know yet if they're going to accept that, but
You made the pitch to them to put this in.
yes, since they have already reviewed it and passed it,
Okay,
so.
do we also need to put whatever is in S 325? I don't remember how we changed this paragraph. But I just remember that it was in 325, frankly, because of the 60 that I
Yes.
wouldn't mind. But
So in S 325, you're changing the section to split out regional plan readoption and the regional plan amendment process. So there actually are quite a few more changes.
yeah,
So I think one of the options here is that if you are seeking to pass this bill right now, we would want to pass it soon, and that way, if there was then the other language added to S 325, that bill would potentially pass later in time. Having this language and that language.
Okay,
It's not a great scenario, but that is an option that you have to teach people.
I am a little, can we, I kind of want you to say that again, just so I'm processing, because if they're like, almost undoubtedly, 325 is gonna pass later than
Yeah.
940, and so. This, in a way, whatever we do with this, like, if we could approve this language, and then that would be an indicator to them that they ought to include it in theirs, but. It seems to me that either way, this gets overwritten by whatever they do.
It's certain, it very much depends, it's only April 17th.
Okay.
So, sure, if you're voting to concur with this bill today,
No.
that would be true.
Mhm.
yeah, it does seem like. If we're gonna vote to concur and nobody's suggested changes yet,
Mhm.
we just vote to concur. And then we leave it up to 325
Mhm.
to coordinate this
Mhm,
paragraph,
mhm.
because. It's probable that they're gonna have more changes in 325, and we should assume what they're gonna do. And that you and Chair Sheldon should be in touch about how you want to coordinate those, this paragraph.
It's 3 paragraphs.
It's 3 paragraphs,
Yes,
okay.
so it is,
It's
in
more
just,
than
it's
just
just,
this.
it is just this section, but it's 3 separate subdivisions.
Okay, so, but I don't think we should put something for 325 in here, because we don't know what they're gonna do yet.
Yep, I think that's fair, and banking on that theirs is gonna go later anyway, I'll just be in touch with Chair Sheldon to say. We have both now agreed on this language, don't
Yeah.
forget to include it, so that it doesn't, so that we don't want it to get lost.
Does this make sense, Jerry? Good,
Yeah.
okay.
Your other option is not to vote to concur with the language out here. And just have it be in S 325.
That, on the one hand, would be. That's one path. I feel like leaving it in is like an indication that like we have seen it and agree.
What do you think? It's not bad. Just leaving it in and having it all get reconciled in 325. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, that bill will have to come back to us,
Yes,
because they're making
sure.
changes, so we can also do it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Okay,
That'll give us a little time.
yeah,
Yeah.
thoughts on our projects?
No, only that. We want to keep ourselves outshone of according to supposed to.
Oh, you mean that, well, it is,
So hopefully they'll do what they need to do.
right,
Yeah.
exactly, this is,
Yeah.
again, I'll have
Yeah.
to be in coordination with
And
Chair
this
Sheldon.
bill came from House Energy, not Environment, correct?
Oh,
This
so they would have not seen,
Yes,
Oh, they have?
they did a walkthrough of it, yeah.
okay,
They didn't take possession of the bill, but they are aware of language.
okay,
Um,
great. Well, I otherwise don't have any suggested changes for this aspect of it. Okay, let's keep going.
Section 3 is amending 24 VSA 4350, which is on the municipal planning process specifically, and still on this optional energy compliance. And so at the top of page 6, it's adding the list of things to be part of a municipal planning process, that if they are going to seek the optional determination of energy compliance, it is part of the process here.
Okay.
And then section 4 is amending 24 VSA 4352, the statute that establishes the enhanced energy planning process. It amends a couple of the existing pieces of it which reference old statutes, so that it now references greenhouse gas reduction requirements, strikes the old goals, and then references the renewable energy standard.
Sorry, I think I lost where you.
I'm at the top of page 7.
Oh,
Section 4 starts on page 6, but the first change of it's on page 7.
Got you.
Subsection D then changes that currently the state energy plan has to have the standards for the enhanced energy planning process. This is changing it so that the Commissioner of Public Service may issue them within 1 year after adopting the updated comprehensive energy plan.
Okay,
And then next on page 8, it strikes the specific public hearing for the enhanced energy process that would be that's currently required in the statute to reference that this would be part of the review for the land use review board, so that comments are considered by the regional planning commission or municipal planning during that process.
okay,
Subsection G is being struck because that was temporary language before that expired basically in July of 2018. And then new language is being added about exceptions for the timelines on this currently, and it will still be broadly true that an enhanced energy determination is tied to the expiration date of the regional plan. And then there are 2 exceptions of that, which is allowed to last a little bit longer by getting a what do they call it, a provisional affirmative determination if they're making a change sort of off cycle, so that there isn't a gap between when the plan has gotten adopted but is not yet approved. So that's the first caveat, which is at the bottom of page 9 into page 10. And then also the other caveat is if they amend the regional plan but don't change the enhanced energy element, the department has to determine if they need to do another review or if they can just not go through a full review process because it hasn't changed.
okay,
And then at the very bottom of page 10, striking a shall, replacing it with a may, so the commissioner may consult with the other state agencies as part of this process. And then finally on page 11, section 5 is the third topic in this bill, which is the repeal of the Telecommunications and Connectivity Advisory Board.
and that was something that finance looked at. Okay. Okay, well. No proposed changes. People are feeling okay about this?
Yeah, should we vote it?
I think we should vote it. Is that? Thank you, Jude. Fabulous.
Say my name right, Jude?
I think so this time. I didn't cross it off and I dropped twice.
It's good, it's good.
Yeah.
It's
I'm improving.
ending strong.
Okay, fine, favorable.
Yeah.
That's by the out for me.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, Senator Beck, yes. Senator Baumgartner.
Yes.
Senator Hardy.
Yes.
Senator Williams. Yes. Senator Watson.
Yes.
Okay, 5-0.
I think you're the reporter for finance.
So,
Am I?
I think that's what I might remember. Do you remember when you went there?
I don't think I am.
You don't think you are?
I don't think so.
So who?
I mean, I'm happy to do it.
Okay. Thank you. That's fabulous. Okay, since you've heard about it twice now.
Yeah.
Basically. Thank you. Okay, gosh, so. Dang, we are out of things to do. So. Just as FYI, I'm still putting together the agenda for next week, so that's, you know, I don't have a preview for you for that, but. Otherwise, again, just trying to get some more bills out of here. Probably 778 will be the first thing we do.
Yeah, I already put on.
That's great, okay. Well, any other thoughts, comments, folks want to offer before we adjourn for the day?
What's 778?
Oh, the dam safety. Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, that's right, we were going to introduce 928 today, but folks were not available to do that. Yeah. So, anyway, we'll probably do that also. Okay, so with that.